Hi, Dad. Welcome back to another episode of David Andy's Honest About Life. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to be here as always.
Wonderful to have you here. So this is in this session. Let's talk about a really, at the time, an incredibly sensitive subject, the Vietnam War. And so I gathered a little bit of information to sort of prep you for this. So during the War era, between 1964 and 1973, the U.S. military drafted 2.2 million American men out of an eligible pool of 27 million. 18 to 26 was the age range for the selective service law. Were you too young to be drafted, or were you just not chosen? And what was that like back then?
Yeah, it was a very scary time. It was one. I was 1A, so I was right there at the top. But literally on my 18th birthday, I graduated from high school, and they stopped the draft like a day before my 18th birthday, and I would have gone like the next day. I believe they just stopped the draft at that point. They put it on pause or whatever, and I didn't get chosen. And I was right at the top of the list. I would have been chosen, but I was just a day away from 18. I was 17, and when they stopped it, and then I graduated when I was 18. I got right into college. I started at the University of Minnesota, and I think I had a better chance of not going if I was in college. And I wanted to make sure that I did get into college. So yeah, it was a very hard time for a lot of loved ones, a lot of families. I know a lot of the guys in my grade were older than I was younger, my grade. So there were a lot of guys getting drafted. And it was a real tough time. It was a tough time for a lot of families that had to deal with that.
I'm sure. Do you have some friends from high school that you remember that went and didn't come back?
Yeah, I'm not sure how that happened, but I didn't have a lot of friends that didn't make it back. But there was one, and I believe he passed outside of the Army. So there's something else that went on there. But yeah, so I was very fortunate not to have a lot of friends that gave their lives for our country. You know, they did the service that they provided to keep our freedoms going was amazing. And I to this day, I love them all, you know, for doing that. And
We do.
I feel bad that I didn't do it, that I just didn't.
Yeah, this is a conversation you and I have probably, if we've ever had it, it couldn't have been more than once or twice.
Right.
But it's not something that we talk a lot about because, again, I'm sure it brings up a lot of emotion. You know, it was a sad time, a confusing time. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation because I was curious, what that was like. But your brother Marshall was about 8 years older than you,
Correct.
so he would have been in the upper end of that age range. Again,
Correct.
18 to 26 was the age range for the selective service law. Did he also did not?
He didn't. He was married and had children at that point, and that put him down on the list, I believe. Married, children, and going to school full time. So I think he was down on the list. He also had a health issue with his foot. So that he had a club foot, I believe. I never talked to Marshall about this a lot, but and so there were some health issues, and then also his family and going to school kind of put him down on the list.
Right, right. It's interesting that you mentioned clubfoot because of our own daughter, right?
Right.
Wonder if it's a genetic thing or something else.
Yeah, it could be. That's those genetics. Those genes are weird.
They are. Is there anything else you'd say about that before we end this session about the Vietnam War and how your family felt?
I think we all had, the other thing that was going on were the anti-war protesters. And so that put kind of a negative impact. You know what? I got to tell you something. I had a guy come up to me, and he was wearing he must have been in his 80s, easily in his 80s, maybe 90. And he came up to me in a grocery store, and I said, "Sir, thank you for your service." And he went into his pocket because he had a hat and he was in the Navy. He had a hat on, and he goes, "Here, read this, and give this to others." And you know what it said on it? It said, "Welcome home."
Oh,
And he said that's one of the things that we never got when we got back at the end of the Vietnam War. We never, he said, we weren't welcomed back. And why? It just that I remember those times. It was just rough. With the Agent Orange and all these things that they had to deal with coming back. But yeah, so I that card I will keep forever. It just says "Welcome home."
yeah.
That next time, I love your words. He told me, he said, "Your words are wonderful," but he said, "Next time you see somebody, tell them welcome home."
Wow, that is powerful.
Yeah, that's what I said. It was awesome. That reached me.
And so, and obviously, we maybe it's not obvious, but we take every opportunity to thank them for their service, and it was good of you to do that as well. I know that your dad was in the Navy. Carrie's dad was in the Navy. They love to wear their Navy caps, and we thank them for their service.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. So we'll end with that, Dad. Thank you. Love you very much, and look forward to seeing you next time.
Awesome, buddy. Love you.